guys, we're picking up in our story of Esther. This is week 3. We have a very special guest. You know her, you love her. She was with us last week. Give it up for my friend, Nicole.
We pick up in the story with Esther in quite a pickle with the influence of Haman. Remember the sus, power-hungry dude, that the king made a law that would destroy those who believed in God. Esther decides she will tell the king she believes in God and will plead for mercy for God's people. A very risky decision that could cost her life. Esther approaches the king and asks him to have dinner with her the next day. Her plan is to ask for mercy at the dinner. Well, the night before the dinner, the king can't sleep. He decides to take the L and gets up from his bed. To pass the time in the middle of the night, the king decides to read a history book that is written about his own reign as king. Weird flex, but go off, king. As he's reading this book about his reign as king, he discovered something he wasn't aware of. In the book, it states that Queen Esther's cousin, Mordecai, helped expose 2 guards' plan to assassinate the king. Mordecai literally saved the king's life. As a sign of gratitude, the king summons Mordecai and makes him a noble prince. The king doesn't stop there to show his gratitude. The next day at dinner, when Esther boldly tells the king she believes in God and asks for mercy for all of God's people, the king shows them mercy. The king gets rid of the law that would destroy God's people. Because of Mordecai's boldness and Esther's influence as queen, they are able to save God's people.
Have you ever been in a group of friends where the conversation suddenly changes to talking badly about someone who isn't there? I'll never forget the moment where I was hanging out with some friends and this conversation took that exact same turn. At that moment, I had a very clear choice to make. Do I add to the conversation and also talk poorly about the girl, or do I decide to switch the conversation? Because, to be honest, I didn't necessarily disagree with anything that was being said. This girl, quite honestly, she was pretty selfish. She didn't really treat others very kindly, and in fact, she was rather mean in kind of a lot of ways. But I also knew that I honestly didn't really know her very well. I didn't know what her family was like at home. Maybe she's never learned what it looks like to treat people kindly because she's never been treated very kindly herself. So let me ask you, with the person next to you, what do you think I did? A, changed the subject and said, if I were in her place, I wouldn't really want others talking about me like this. Let's talk about something else. B, do you think I stayed silent but listened really closely to what my friends were saying and in my head actually agreeing with everything? Or C, do you think I participated in the conversation and said really mean things about the girl too? I'm not proud of it, but the answer is actually C. I called this girl ugly. I know, it's awful. I remember saying things like, did you see what she was wearing today? And I remember the other girls were talking about how embarrassing it was whenever she would try and hang out with us. At this moment, I was completely influenced by my friends, even though I knew what I was doing was wrong. I was also negatively influencing others in the group because I was choosing to continue the conversation. My guess is that we've all been in a similar situation before, whether it was gossiping behind someone's back like I was, or maybe for you, it was that you negatively influenced someone else to lie to their parents, or encourage someone else to cheat on a test instead of studying, or you fill in the blank of whatever way you've negatively influenced someone before. You know, I love the story of Esther because in it, we learn what it looks like to choose to be a good influence on others and what it looks like to be a bad influence. Take the king's right-hand man, Haman, for example. In the story, we learn that Haman is power hungry. He's gone as far as getting a law approved to get rid of people who don't support him. He's completely selfish. His motivations are only to gain power for himself. He doesn't take into consideration how his actions will affect others. And you know, on the other hand, we see Esther's cousin Mordecai. In a lot of ways, I think he's actually the hidden hero in this story. He takes what little influence he has in order to help others to not gain power for himself. His motivation is 100% focused on doing good. You know, this makes me wonder, in what ways am I using the influence I have with my friends, with my family, at my job? Do I use my influence only so that I can get something out of it? Is it purely selfish like Haman? Or is it others-focused like Mordecai? Here's the deal. We all have influence. For you, it could be with your family, maybe your siblings or your friends. You know, that sports team you're on, the band you're in, the school you're at, the teachers you're around, even here at church. But you have a decision to make, just like I did when I was with my group of friends talking poorly about that one girl. Will you choose to be like I was and choose to allow others to influence you negatively? Or will you be brave? Will you choose to be like Mordecai was and use your influence positively? Because here's what's at stake. If you choose to influence people positively, then it sets you up to have trust with people in your life and ultimately to tell them about Jesus. But actually, I'd even take this one step further and say that if you're someone who calls yourself a Christ-centered difference maker, meaning you've committed your life to following Jesus and you want to know how to tell others about him and to make difference, you have a responsibility to use your influence for good. The more positive influence we have within our circles of people, the more trust will be extended to us, and the more opportunities will be given to tell people about Jesus. So once again, I ask you, will you choose to influence people negatively? Or will you take your responsibility seriously and influence people for good?